Have you ever wondered why, in a world full of freedom, technology, and choice, the human heart still feels so lost? Why do people who seem to have it all still carry an emptiness they cannot name? The truth is simple yet profound. The farther we move from divine guidance, the closer we come to chaos, and the only way back to peace is through clarity, the kind that Islam brings. In the modern Western world, humanity stands at the height of progress, but the depth of confusion. People have more access to information than ever before, yet they understand less about themselves and their purpose. The world celebrates freedom, but that freedom has become a weight too heavy to carry. It has led to a culture where everyone defines their own truth, where right and wrong are no longer constants but shifting opinions, and where meaning is replaced by pleasure. We were told that liberation would bring happiness, that breaking all boundaries would bring fulfillment. But instead, it has brought anxiety, loneliness, and spiritual fatigue. The Western world has built skyscrapers but lost sight of the sky. It has expanded knowledge but narrowed wisdom. It has freed the body but imprisoned the soul. Every achievement seems to add comfort but not contentment. The problem is not in success itself, but in what success is built upon. When life is built on self-worship, confusion is inevitable. Because when the self becomes God, truth becomes subjective, and a world without absolute truth will always descend into chaos. Islam comes not to reject the world, but to realign it. It is the light that cuts through the fog of confusion, the map that turns wandering into direction. In a time where every voice claims to have the truth, Islam reminds us that truth is not something we invent. It is something we return to. It has always been there, waiting in the divine message that shaped humanity from the very beginning. The Quran is not just a book of rituals, but a guide for life. For every generation and every soul that feels lost, it doesn't deny reason, it refines it. It doesn't deny freedom, it disciplines it. It doesn't erase individuality, it purifies it. Islam teaches that clarity is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of meaning within it. In the chaos of the modern world, Islam whispers a simple truth: peace is not found by escaping the storm, but by finding the one who controls it. When the heart remembers Allah, everything falls into place. What once felt random begins to make sense. What once felt empty becomes full. The heart finds its home. The Western idea of progress is rooted in the belief that man is his own master. Islam teaches that the true strength of man lies not in self-worship, but in self-awareness, in knowing who he is and who he belongs to. The Western mind says, be whatever you want to be, but the Islamic heart responds, be what you were created to be. There is no greater peace than living in alignment with your purpose. When a person submits to Allah, they are no longer chasing the endless waves of societal expectations. They find balance, they find rest. They stop searching for love in the wrong places because they realize they were already loved by the one who created love. That is the journey from chaos to clarity. When the soul stops running away from God and starts walking toward Him. In that walk, every pain becomes a lesson, every delay becomes mercy, and every hardship becomes a sign of divine care. This is the difference between living life reacting to chaos and living life guided by purpose. Islam teaches that clarity is not the absence of questions, but the presence of faith. It is trusting that even when you do not understand the path, the one who designed it does. The beauty of Islam is that it speaks to both the intellect and the heart. It calls the mind to reflection and the soul to submission. It builds harmony between logic and love, between duty and desire. The Western world divides these, one side chasing passion, the other chasing reason, and ends up with a humanity that feels fragmented. But Islam unites them under one truth, that both heart and mind were created to serve Allah. When that harmony is restored, life becomes balanced. The confusion disappears not because the world changes, but because the heart changes its focus. The person who once sought meaning in success, fame, or relationships begins to see that true fulfillment is not in possessing, but in belonging to the Creator. That's why even in hardship, a believer finds peace, because peace is not the reward for a problem-free life. It is the gift of faith, and when that faith takes root, it transforms chaos into calm, fear into strength, and despair into gratitude. In the end, the journey from Western chaos to Islamic clarity is not a journey of geography, it is a journey of the soul. It begins when you stop running from yourself and start returning to the one who made you. It begins when you realize that the answers you've been searching for are not in the noise of the world, but in the silence of sincere prayer. Islam does not promise a life without struggle, it promises a life with purpose. And purpose is what turns every moment, joy or sorrow, into a step toward eternity. The West teaches people to live for today, but Islam teaches people to live for forever. That is where true clarity lies. Not in temporary pleasure, but in eternal perspective. So while the world drowns in confusion, those who hold on to the rope of Allah rise above it. They see through the illusion of chaos and walk in the light of divine truth. And when they do, they finally understand that clarity is not something found outside. It is something awakened within. In a world that prides itself on progress, freedom, and modern enlightenment, humanity finds itself drowning in confusion, loneliness, and spiritual exhaustion. The Western world has built its empire upon the idea that freedom means living without divine boundaries, that success lies in individualism, and that happiness can be achieved by chasing desires. But the more they chase, the emptier they feel. They have built cities of glass and steel, but hearts of dust and despair. They have mastered how to communicate across oceans, but forgotten how to connect with their own souls. This is the paradox of the modern age. A civilization overflowing with knowledge, yet starving for wisdom, rich in possessions, yet bankrupt in peace. People are told that truth is relative, that right and wrong depend on personal opinion, and that life has no divine purpose. But when every person becomes the maker of their own morality, the world becomes a battlefield of egos, desires, and endless chaos. Deep inside, even amidst luxury and freedom, there remains a silent scream, the cry of a soul that cannot find rest. It is the cry of a heart that was created for something higher, something eternal. The Western dream teaches man to look outward for fulfillment in wealth, fame, love, and pleasure. But the more he looks outward, the more disconnected he becomes from the one who created him. He tries to silence the emptiness with distractions, but the void only grows louder in the silence of the night. And in that silence, when all illusions fade, the truth whispers. Peace is not found in running away from God, but in returning to Him. That is where Islam begins, not as a culture or philosophy, as divine clarity in a world of confusion. Islam brings the heart back home, reminding it that it was never created to chase the temporary, but to connect with the eternal. It teaches that freedom is not the right to do whatever you want, the power to do what is right. It gives life direction by anchoring it in purpose, that every breath, every success, every hardship has meaning because it comes from Allah. The modern world has tried to find peace through pleasure, power, and progress, yet it continues to fall apart from within. Islam offers a path not of restriction, but of liberation. Liberation from the slavery of ego, desire, and fear. It transforms chaos into clarity by aligning the heart with divine truth. When the soul remembers its creator, the confusion fades, because the light of faith gives meaning to every shadow. And so, in a time when the world has lost its moral compass, Islam stands as a reminder that clarity is not found by inventing new truths, but by rediscovering the eternal one, the truth that there is no peace without purpose, and no purpose without Allah. The world today is drowning in noise, the noise of opinions, trends, and ideologies, all claiming to offer freedom and happiness, yet none able to fill the emptiness within. In the pursuit of progress, humanity has detached itself from its creator, believing that intellect alone could guide the heart. The Western system glorifies personal freedom, yet it enslaves the soul to its own desires. It promises joy through material success, but that joy fades the moment the excitement ends. The more the world progresses technologically, the further it drifts spiritually. There are skyscrapers reaching the clouds, but hearts that can't rise from despair. There are millions of people connected through screens, yet they feel utterly alone. The Western way tells man to define his own truth, to worship self-pleasure, and to live for the moment. This self-centered philosophy creates a silent storm inside the human spirit, a deep sense of loss and confusion. Without a divine center, life becomes an endless cycle of seeking validation and escaping pain. A person may achieve everything the world can offer, fame, wealth, beauty, influence, and still feel incomplete because their soul was never meant to be nourished by temporary things. This is the crisis of modern humanity. It has mistaken comfort for peace, distraction for fulfillment, and pleasure for purpose. But peace cannot exist without clarity, and clarity cannot exist without truth. Islam enters this storm not as a new ideology, but as a timeless light that restores what was lost, the link between the human and the divine. It reminds us that the heart was designed for remembrance, not rebellion, and that true freedom is not found in following every desire, but in mastering it. When a person submits to Allah, they are not losing freedom, they are finding the only kind of freedom that matters. The freedom from being a slave to this world. The Quran does not call man to abandon the world, it calls him to live in it with purpose, balance, and consciousness of the Creator. It realigns the human heart, giving it the strength to face challenges without losing direction. The clarity Islam offers does not come from human logic, but from divine wisdom. And that is why it remains unshaken through time. The world may change its trends and redefine morality every decade, but the truth remains the same without Allah. There is no true direction. Islam brings serenity not by removing the trials of life, but by teaching the soul how to rise above them. It gives meaning to pain, purpose to effort, and hope to despair. In a society drowning in endless choices, Islam simplifies the noise by offering one eternal choice: to live for the one who created you. That single decision transforms confusion into certainty, chaos into peace, and emptiness into purpose. It reminds the soul that no matter how dark the world becomes, divine light is never far. It only takes a turn of the heart to find it again. The modern Western world stands as a paradox: advanced yet aimless, connected yet isolated, free yet enslaved. It glorifies personal autonomy, but hides a deep spiritual void under the illusion of progress. Every billboard, every advertisement, every ideology screams that fulfillment lies in chasing pleasure, power, or recognition. But when people reach the top of the mountain, they discover that what they thought was success is just another mirage. They chase one dream after another, each time hoping that the next one will finally satisfy them. Yet the emptiness remains. The reason is simple: the human soul was never created to find peace in temporary things. It was designed to find peace only in connection with its Creator. Without that connection, everything becomes meaningless. This is why so many people, even in the richest nations, live with silent despair. They wake up every morning with anxiety, they numb their pain with distractions, and they go to bed feeling hollow despite having everything. The Western system promised liberation, but it created new forms of slavery. Slavery to appearance, to wealth, to desire, and to the approval of others. A person may appear confident on the outside, but remain lost within because they have been taught to look for meaning everywhere except in faith. Islam comes as the voice that awakens the heart from this illusion. It reminds the human being that true peace is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of divine purpose. When you know why you exist, life stops feeling like a random struggle and becomes a meaningful journey. Islam teaches that clarity is not found in rejecting the world, but in understanding it through the lens of faith. It gives the soul a compass, a direction that aligns every thought, feeling, and decision with the remembrance of Allah. The Western definition of freedom is doing whatever you desire. Islam teaches that the truest freedom is freeing the heart from its desires, because desires, when uncontrolled, become chains that bind you to this world. Islam does not deny human emotions or ambitions. It purifies them. It redirects the heart from self-obsession to self-awareness, from arrogance to humility, from chaos to peace. In a world where people are told to follow their hearts, Islam teaches them to train their hearts, because a heart without guidance is like a ship without a sail, drifting wherever the waves take it. The West built its values on human pride, but Islam builds its values on divine wisdom. It tells us that happiness is not found in possessing more, but in being content with less. It teaches that success is not measured by status, but by sincerity. It redefines strength as patience, beauty as modesty, and intelligence as obedience to Allah. When a person lives with that clarity, even pain becomes purposeful, because they know that every trial refines their soul and draws them closer to their Creator. The Western world seeks to escape suffering. Islam teaches how to grow through it. This understanding transforms life itself. It turns confusion into confidence and hopelessness into hope. A believer walking in the path of Islam does not fear the chaos around them, because their peace is rooted in something eternal, the remembrance of the one who never changes. And in that remembrance, they find everything the world has been searching for: tranquility, love, and meaning that cannot be shaken by time. This is the journey from Western chaos to Islamic clarity, a journey not of migration, but of awakening. It begins when the soul realizes that the noise of the world can never silence the voice of truth within. It begins when the heart stops running after illusions and starts returning to its origin. The West teaches people to search for themselves. Islam teaches people to search for Allah, and in finding Him, they find themselves. Because when the Creator is known, the creation makes sense. Every joy becomes a gift, every pain becomes a lesson, and every breath becomes an act of worship. Islam does not ask you to abandon the world. It asks you to see it as it truly is: a temporary stop on an eternal journey. When this realization dawns, everything changes. The heart becomes calm even when the world is loud. The mind becomes clear even when the path is uncertain. The believer walks with purpose while others wander in confusion. The chaos of the world may remain, but it no longer rules the heart that has found divine clarity. And that is the miracle of faith. It takes a life once filled with fear, emptiness, and doubt and transforms it into one filled with peace, direction, and light. This is what Islam offers to a lost world, not escape, but awakening, not rules, wisdom, not chains, but wings, wings that lift the soul from chaos into clarity, from confusion into peace, and from self-centeredness into divine connection. The modern age has given humanity unprecedented access to comfort, technology, and luxury, yet it has quietly stripped away the essence of inner peace. People today are surrounded by material abundance, but starved of spiritual nourishment. They have learned to control the world around them, but have lost control over their own hearts. The obsession with self-gratification, fame, and wealth has created an illusion of happiness, but beneath the surface lies deep loneliness and confusion. The modern mind is always restless, chasing after new desires only to find emptiness waiting at the end of every pursuit. This restlessness stems from detachment from divine truth, from forgetting the very purpose for which life was created. In the name of progress, the world has walked away from faith and replaced it with human pride. The consequences are visible everywhere: rising depression, broken families, moral decay, and loss of direction. Humanity has tried to build a paradise without God. The result is a spiritual wasteland. The modern person's soul cries for meaning, yet the world tells them to silence that voice. No amount of distraction can fill the void that was meant for the remembrance of Allah. The heart, by its nature, was designed to find peace only in submission to its creator. Everything else is temporary relief that fades like smoke. In contrast, Islam offers a complete and timeless solution to this crisis of meaning. It does not reject the world, but restores balance to it. Islam teaches that the world is not an end, but a means, a path to reach eternal success. It reconnects the human being to their origin, reminding them that peace is not found in possessions or pleasure, but in the remembrance of Allah. The Quran describes this truth clearly. Verily, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. This remembrance is not limited to prayer or ritual. It is a state of consciousness that transforms how one lives, speaks, and thinks. When faith enters the heart, every act, whether small or great, becomes worship. Believer begins to see trials as blessings in disguise and hardships as opportunities to grow closer to Allah. The chaos of the world no longer disturbs their peace because they view life through the lens of divine wisdom. Islam aligns the soul with its true nature: surrender. When one surrenders their ego, they no longer chase illusions. They find freedom not by doing whatever they want, but by wanting what pleases Allah. That is the essence of inner peace, a calmness that cannot be shaken by loss, failure, or the noise of the world. Western society glorifies the self, teaching that happiness comes from self-expression and independence. But Islam teaches that true freedom is found in dependence on the one who needs nothing. A person who lives without faith becomes a slave to desires, trends, and public opinion, constantly changing themselves to please others. They lose themselves in the process of trying to be seen. Islam liberates the soul from these invisible chains by grounding identity in something eternal, servitude to Allah. A Muslim does not live for the approval of people, but for the pleasure of their Lord. This brings a deep, unshakable peace that no worldly success can offer. In a world obsessed with appearances, Islam focuses on the heart. It teaches humility when the world preaches arrogance, patience when society demands speed, and modesty when culture celebrates exposure. Each principle of Islam refines the human character and restores dignity to the soul. It transforms chaos into clarity and distraction into devotion. Islam doesn't erase human emotion, it purifies it. Love becomes sacred, wealth becomes a trust, and life becomes worship. When the heart is ruled by faith, everything else falls into its rightful place. The contrast between the chaos of modernity and the clarity of Islam is not merely philosophical, it is visible in the quality of life each produces. A life guided by worldly values may look glamorous from the outside, but is often empty within, while a life guided by divine values radiates peace even in simplicity. The one who remembers Allah is never truly alone, and the one who forgets him is never truly at rest. The peace that Islam offers is not temporary comfort but eternal stability. It is the calmness that comes from knowing that everything happens by the will of Allah, that every trial has meaning, and that every act done sincerely is recorded by the Most Merciful. In a world drowning in noise, Islam is the voice of truth that calls the soul home. It calls humanity to rediscover purpose, to live with balance, to walk with faith in a direction that leads beyond this fleeting world. The modern world promises happiness, but delivers anxiety. Islam promises surrender and delivers peace. When the heart finally bows to its creator, chaos disappears, and what remains is light. The light of faith that guides, heals, and gives life true meaning.